Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first show of 2021.
Yes, welcome, everyone. We hope you had a good Christmas and New Year. And welcome to the show. And if you are a new listener, Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we broadcast on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley. We also live stream on our Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group, my YouTube channel. You can find all the back episodes in either of those places or on my website, drlesliephillips.com. And also the podcast is available on all the major podcasting platforms as well.
Oh boy.
Lots of choices for how to get the show. So we finished off last year. We did a whole series for the last 6 months of 2020 on psychic abilities. And we went through 22 different psychic abilities, and we talked about how they were channeled through the chakra system and how they relate to the chakras. And that was in celebration of my new book called Intuition and Chakras.
Yes, it was.
And we covered every psychic ability in the book in one of our podcast episodes. And so they are all there for you to go back and listen to. And so this year, I am just collecting a few other things that might be thought of as psychic abilities that are not necessarily in the book, but are worth our while talking about. And so the first one that we're going to discuss is automatic writing and automatic drawing. And so I'll explain what they are, and I'll explain why they're not in the book. So automatic writing, it's purported to be a psychic ability that allows a person to produce written words without necessarily doing it consciously or without necessarily doing it with their intellect. And automatic drawing is the same thing, but in this case, you are doing a painting or a drawing. And so in either case, these automatic messages, in the case of the automatic writing, will often be done by the person who's doing the writing, holding a pen or a pencil on a sheet of paper, and then just allowing their hand to write and not knowing consciously what they're writing. And the same thing with the automatic drawing. It would be done with a pencil or with a paintbrush, and the medium or the psychic, the person who's doing that activity, gets themselves out of the way and allows the messages to come through on the page. And why did I not include those in my book? Because they're not necessarily a single psychic ability that is in operation in order to do that. It could be a number of different things going on, and it could be being done in a number of different ways. So, for example, it could be a form of channeling. Maybe in its purest form, it's a form of channeling, where the consciousness of the person who is doing the writing or the drawing actually leaves their own body and gives it over to some kind of spirit or guide, who then operates the body and delivers the message through the body. So that would be someone who is being completely an unconscious channel, meaning they completely vacate the building give their body over to the one who is delivering the message. So automatic writing and automatic drawing can occur as a kind of unconscious channeling in that way. But it can also be different to that. So it can be a form of more conscious channeling, where the person who owns the body that's doing the writing or that's doing the drawing is to some degree conscious of what's going on. And so, for example, I believe when I wrote my first book, The Midas Tree, that was a form of channeled writing. Now, in order to write it, I didn't leave my body, but I didn't use my intellect or my conscious mind to write the book, because the book came through clairvoyantly. So I was still in charge of all my faculties, still in my body, but through my clairvoyance, the story in the book played like a videotape. And I literally watched the pictures and I wrote down in the book what I saw. So I would still say that that is a form of channeled writing, but it is being a more conscious channel. And I think that that is actually the way that a lot of fiction writers write their books, that they're actually doing exactly the same thing, and they might call it their imagination, but they're seeing the pictures and the images of what they're writing about, and then they're just writing that down, and then maybe using the conscious mind or the intellect later when they have to, check their grammar and structure the writing.
When you think about it, it's like, excuse me, it's like inventions. Inventions, you'll see, become apparent in different countries where the inventors inventing something at the same time and not actually corresponding with each other in any way or shape or form. It's just out there in the universe, ready for someone to grab.
That's right, someone to take up the project. And a
Yeah.
lot of channeled writing is like that. There's some great examples of channeled writing, and I know that some of the entities, the teachers that are being channeled, I mean, basically they put out a call, and if the person who now is the famous channel, like Lee Carroll channeling Cryon, and he has written many, many books, which are channeled books, which you might sort of also think of as automatic writing. Cryon basically said, well, if he didn't take up the call, somebody else would. So you're right, Corey. And you know what? In ancient Greece, that was the idea of the muse, the muse, the spiritual inspiration, being, what's the word? Picked upon by a muse.
Well, even Rowling's with Harry Potter, it came to her on a train ride, and the whole thing just appeared to her in a short train
Right.
ride. All
Yeah.
she had to do was write it down.
Yeah, exactly. Because these things can be written in spirit in their entirety. And basically they're coming through as a download to the person who is writing the book. And they're passing it out, in a linear form. But it's literally pre-existing as spirit and just has to be tapped into and downloaded.
Do you think emotions are tied into the writing, not to the writing itself, but to the written word? I mean, like when you look at a love letter, right, that goes from one person to another, and that person reads and it touches their emotion, but do you think their emotion has a part to do with it as well?
Well, I think that the words that are written can make you feel an emotion. And I think that a love letter can be written from love, and that love can be being channeled from the soul of the writer. I don't know how else. I would say if the writer's emotions are involved, then the writer is getting in the way of the channeled writing, because the emotions are coming from the person's physical nature. So some other, I mentioned one famous example of channeled work, which is Lee Carroll and Cryon. And there are lots of others. So Jane Roberts, who's wrote many, many books, channeled an entity called Seth. And basically Seth delivered the books as a form of actually spoken writing that somebody else then wrote down. So that's another example. And there are lots and lots of them. Let me see if I can think of some more. God, I had some on the tip of my tongue before we started the show, and then now I'm like blanking, but try and think of some that people might have heard of that you would, I mean, J.K. Rowling in the Harry Potter books is a really good example, like you said. And even lots of other famous writers like William Burroughs. William Burroughs, his book Naked Lunch, he reckoned was automatic writing, but he reckoned he was possessed by a non-benevolent being that wrote that book. Here's one that you know a lot about, Corey, Joseph Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Was channeled writing, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to explain who he is for people who don't know?
I don't know if everybody would like that.
Oh,
Joseph Smith was the first prophet of the Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saints, and he was given, when he was just a young child, he was given he had a vision and a visitation, and what happened is he found plates, gold plates with a history of two peoples in North America, warring peoples, and their spiritual growth and physical growth in North America, and how it linked into uh, Israel and Jesus Christ and all of that Christianity. But afterwards, those were places that were given to him. But afterwards, he wrote another text. He would get prophetic statements and write those down for his constituents as well.
yeah. Another great example is Conversations with God, from written by Neil Donald.
That's excellent.
That's a really good one because it's actually a conversation between him and God.
Yeah, very contemporary too.
Yeah, he's writing a question and then he's getting an automatic writing response to the question that he asks. Another example of a form of automatic writing, actually, which you might not first think of, is the Ouija board. The Ouija board is actually a form of automatic writing, isn't it?
Yeah, when you think about it, yeah.
People going into a sort of a collective trance state and then, you know, moving their hand on this board to write out messages.
I think a lot of what we write, a lot of what we put down on paper or on the computer or whatever is channeled. It's given to us specifically for reasons at that time. Diaries, for instance, I think a diary or a journal, I think they're very close to channeled writing, because you're not writing what somebody wants you to tell, but they're giving you access to more depth and perception about who you are.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like channeling your inner psychologist.
Yeah. And you know what, I didn't think of this, but a friend of mine and I, we've been playing around with doing some channeled writing. And we've got about 20 channeled messages. And we have been connecting with divine source, some galactic beings, and we've got through some really, really cool messages. And if I'd thought of it before the show, I could have actually read one of them on the show.
Sounds like another book, Dr. Leslie.
Yes, it does sound like another book, doesn't it? Anyway, well, I might do that. Let's see how the show goes. I might be able to dig that up and read one of them. So what else can we say about automatic writing? I mean, I pretty much feel actually like everything I write is some form of automatic or channeled message, because it can be coming from me channeling my higher being, my higher self, and so yeah, automatic writing.
Meditation's a big part of automatic writing too, I would presume.
Well, I think to be able to be in a receptive and meditative state, yes, because like when I mentioned I was writing the Midas Tree, I used my clairvoyance to write that book. And so I would be, in order to do that, I would be in a meditative state, or even a semi-trance-like state. Okay, so automatic writing, we've said, it could be consciously done or unconsciously done, as in the person channeling the writing moves out of their body and gives way for another being to come through that then delivers the message, like Cryon and Lee Carroll, or like Jane Roberts and Seth. But it can also be done in a conscious state, like Neil Donald Walsh and Conversations with God, or the way that I've written my book, the Midas Tree. And it can also be done, like I said, when I wrote the Midas Tree, I used my clairvoyance. So the clairvoyance is the spiritual ability that I used when I was writing my book. I think often it comes as a kind of knowing. So people can be having an instant knowing and then writing down their instant knowing, which would be their claircognizance. We have to go for a break.
Yeah,
but listeners,
we have a question from Shannon, which we'll cover as soon as we get back from the break.
All right, great. You've been tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth, listeners, and we'll be back shortly. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
Hello
Tonight's
again.
episode is about automatic writing. It's also called, it could be called channel writing, spirit writing. I learned today when I was looking up about this that in ancient China, it used to be called spirit writing. And there's actually a tradition of spirit writing in China for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So that's pretty cool. So you said we had a question before the break?
Yes, we do. Would you like me to read it to you now?
I would love you to. Yes.
First question of the new year. It's from Shannon, and Shannon says, my gift of automatic writing opened in August. I write my intention to channel and then find myself guessing the words before they're written. I keep thinking my mind is taking over. How do I let go so I don't get in the way if it's automatic letter for say like a client who wants a message?
Can you read that to me again, Corey?
Okay. My gift of automatic writing opened in August. I write my intention to channel and then find myself guessing the words before they're written. I keep thinking my mind is taking over. How do I get so I don't get in the way if it's an automatic letter for, say, a client who wants a message?
Be aware of where you're putting your consciousness, Shannon. So if your focus is in the front part of your brain, that's your intellect, and then that's going to be you superimposing your thoughts and your mental activity over it. But if you place your consciousness either in your, well, in your case, what I want to say is place it in your crown chakra, which is where you can just know. You can just know what it is that you are, that's coming through for you to write. So it's all about where you place your consciousness. And because we're so trained in our intellect, you have to make a conscious effort to keep pulling yourself out of your intellect. so that you can be in the stream of consciousness that's coming through. So the you that's getting in the way is the intellect. So you need to learn how to bypass the intellect. And that has to do with where you place your conscious awareness when you are doing the channeled writing. So I hope that helps.
Okay, another question from Matt says, is there a method you recommend for preparing yourself to do an automatic writing session?
Well, I mean, I think everybody needs to find their own groove in a way. But if I think about how would I do it, I mean, I would get into a meditative state, and you've taken some of my courses, so you know all the techniques that I use to get into a meditative state. And I would also get into a receptive state, so I would move my energy into being in a kind of receiving mode. And depending on what I was writing and where I was getting the writing from. So for example, I want to write a sequel to the Midas Tree. So when I write a sequel to the Midas Tree, I'll use my clairvoyance again. So I'll place my conscious awareness in my sixth chakra to write that one. The channeled writing that I've been doing with my friend, I would actually be more in my crown chakra, or even above the crown chakra, and also changing the frequency depending on to match the frequency of where the information is coming from. So I think the answer to that is it depends, but getting yourself into a meditative state, a contemplative state, a receptive state, and like what I said to the other lady is, you know, moving your intellect out of the way. I also do.
Sorry, Shannon just added. Yes, because I was giving clients a message after Reiki and I want to bypass that. Thank you, she says. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's okay. Because we were also going to talk about automatic drawing as well.
Yes, art.
And automatic painting. And which I also believe is a way of bringing spiritual information into the physical world in a more of a symbolic form. And all of the I love surrealist art, actually. I loved surrealist art before I even got into any of this psychic stuff. And that is a form of channeled art, actually. And again, the idea is that you are bypassing the conscious mind, you're bypassing the intellectual mind. And so I feel like symbolic art is kind of like a portal or a doorway into the spiritual realm. And so again, to do automatic art, it's a similar thing. It's getting out of your own way, not having a preconceived notion of what it is that you are going to draw, of what it is you're going to bring through on the page, but just allowing the pen or the pencil and the paper to move and for shapes to be formed, or allowing the paintbrush to move on the, you know, on the sheet, and allowing images to be formed, but there's no conscious superimposition. There's no forcing it to look like something that you expect it should look like, but there's just an allowing of this color and form and symbol to come through.
Yeah. And the other thing too, you know, from showing people your card decks at events that we go to, some people look at it and they just don't get it. You know, they just, so if you're doing this type of art, it's going to instill emotion or open people up that are ready to be opened up and ready to accept the message that's going to come to them from the art. It's not necessarily the art, it's the message that comes to people from the art.
And the art, because the symbolism is multidimensional. Symbols are multidimensional. They're not linear like words. And that's why when somebody is looking at, even if it's the symbols on a tarot card or in a painting, that it can mean, something completely different depending on the person who's looking at the card or the painting, depending on the person who is, who information is being channeled for, and so on. And so, yeah, it can evoke emotions and feelings and different associations.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who used to, he plays the organ, and he used to sell, I guess he would sell them, but he would do a piece, a channeled piece, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes long for individuals. He would channel music, and it was that person's own song, whose his own musical meditation. And
Yeah,
those are phenomenal. They just like
yeah.
send you to the deepest meditation.
That's very cool. And that reminds me as well that there are lots of psychic artists out there who will do your soul portrait, which is kind of the same thing, a unique energy drawing that is reflective of you and your energy and, you know, your evolution as well. So yeah, they're all different forms of the same thing in a way, we might
Yep.
say. And like I said, the reason that they're not in the book is because different psychic abilities are being utilized depending on the person who's doing it. They can be channeling it. It can be a form of knowing. It can be a form of seeing. Um, I mean, even in the music, it could be feeling into it. You look like you've seen another comment or
Yeah,
question.
yeah, I did. It's from Aditya. She says, "Woohoo! Automatic writing."
Yeah, that's not a she, that's a he.
I'm sorry.
That's
He
AJ.
says, "Oh, it's AJ. Hi, AJ. Welcome aboard."
Yeah.
He must have wrote that automatically.
Yeah, we should get the people who are listening live to do some automatic writing in the chat box now. See what comes through.
Oh, you can. I don't see anything. I
Yeah.
think it's a wonderful idea.
So anyway, I mean, some really, really famous artists were, self, what's the word? Declared automatic drawers. Salvador Dali, the famous surrealist artist Salvador Dali, practiced automatic drawing. Joan Miro, the paintings of Joan Miro were automatic paintings. And Jean Arp, Andre Breton, they're all surrealist painters, were doing automatic drawings and automatic paintings. So they weren't composing their painting. Now I'm going to draw a landscape or a still life, and it's going to be like this, and the proportions are going to be like that. It, it, the art was channeled, was automatically done from the, well, some people say it's from the subconscious. I like to think that it's from spirit, really.
Yeah. And the other thing too is I think one important thing about, especially when you're drawing or even writing, is when you do that, don't judge. Like I do that with my art. I've judged my art like, oh, it's not very realistic or it's not, but it is channeled. I've done like 3 or 4 pieces that have been channeled, and I look at them again after, and if I'm not in the right space, they come out to me as like, but people who see them, it touches people.
But and that's a good point. That's an important practice, really, of non-judgment. And so doing automatic writing and automatic drawing, one of the keys, I guess, to doing it successfully is, well, A, to bypass the intellect, and B, to let go of judgment, let go of expectations, let go of perfectionism, let go of anything that you've learned about what it should be. And to be honest with you, um, I I wrote my book without ever taking a writing class, and I did my channeled drawings without ever taking a drawing class. And after doing both of those things, and then saying, well, I'm into this, I'm into this, I'm an author now, or I'm into this, I've done this now. I actually took a class in both of those things. And I said, thank goodness that I did not take a class before I did them, because I never would have done them. Because I went to the a writers conference one year and took a workshop, and there are so many rules about how you're supposed to structure your writing and what must be included in the first 3 pages of your novel. If you haven't done that, then it's a disaster. And and just the grammar and all of that. And like any of that would just completely interfere with the flow of a channeled work, of channeled writing. It just, and you see these people in these writers groups, and many of them are there for years and years and years, and they never write a book. And I think that it's actually got quite a lot to do with, they take all these writing courses and people give them all these rules, and then their creativity is completely stopped and stuck, because they're now having to critique and judge everything they do against these standards of writing or of drawing. And so, I mean, this is something that everyone can do and can help all of us to get out of our own way and explore our creativity and explore our higher being, and receive messages and guidance, and create stuff just for our own sheer enjoyment.
Here's one piece that I did. This is the first piece that I ever did in oil or acrylics, and it was done. It
You
was
have to
done.
describe it for the people on the radio, Corey.
I couldn't. The people on the radio should go to the website to take a look at it, because what it is to me, it was something. Let me read what it was, and that way you can get a general idea. The beginning of life, or is it the end of life? Could be the middle. Uh, I said, all it's all in perspective. One takes as the feather of the ball of light becomes the main tract in the paths we can take. The many that have. I'm trying to read my own writing. That brought me here today. So basically what you're looking at is this feather of, this is life, and these are the feather and the tracks that you can take going out into life, right? And
It's how you got here.
yeah,
It's the path you took to get here.
the green growth or the blue of the sadness is sadness, which uh, gone onward, which go outwards as well. Oh, I'm making, as I reflect through the darkness, it comes through sometimes. The light comes through gifts of the universe, sometimes pop theory. I don't know where that came from. This is 15 years old, so some of the lines shine and some are dull, yet all are important, an important part of the whole. The multi colors of the parts give me some brightness and zip. The feathery texture on the rough edges that are being smoothed out to combine spirit to oneness of God. I love the universe as I love each of us and everyone. And the question that I was given before I drew this was, we called it soul retrieval painting. Basically, we all come to our different lives, and parts of us come and parts of us don't come. And this was a part. They said, get a part of your soul to receive your receive that part back within you. And it was a path. It was a clarity of my path. That understanding that the path isn't always straight ahead, that if it goes into different, can go into different areas, and you break off, you come back, some are dark, some are light.
Well, and as you can, from what you've said,
Thank you, Faith.
it's not linear.
Yeah.
right? It's not
Yeah,
linear, it's multidimensional. We are
yeah,
multidimensional beings.
exactly.
And so through these channels of connection and expression, we can connect with our multidimensional nature, especially through the art, because you can really convey ideas and notions that are multidimensional. I'm getting the signal that it's time to go for a break.
Yes, another short break.
We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
What are you laughing at me for? You say my name and you start to laugh.
Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And we broadcast on the radio on 101.7 FM. And we also live stream on Facebook and YouTube and all of the podcasting platforms as well. One of my favorite artists who did automatic drawing is a relatively unknown Swedish artist called Hilma af Klint. And she did a whole body of work that she kept secret, and she didn't want anyone to see it until after she was dead. And she did all of these amazing channeled or automatic paintings. And actually, just like you did, she wrote an explanation of what they were about. So there's also channeled writing that goes with the channeled paintings. And they are, I guess they're about the nature of reality, the nature of man, the nature of God, information channeled through this highly symbolic art. So check her out if you don't know who she is, Hilma af Klint.
Yeah, Shannon asked me, just interesting, Corey, how do you call parts of your soul back to you? That's really simple, actually. Just meditate. Go into a meditation with that in mind, and then you have access to all your past lives. You have access to all your future lives, which are a little bit more difficult because it's harder to discern. But you have access to all this. All you have to do is bring it to you. Just meditate. And am I correct, Dr. Leslie?
Yeah, I think there's different ways of doing it, but what I was going to mention is that in one of my Akashic Adventures, which are these 2-hour workshops that are available on my website, and each of those Akashic Adventures has got about 3 or 4 30-minute sections. The one on past lives includes a kind of a soul retrieval exercise where you're basically in a meditative state and you are flying above and around the planet, looking at where all your previous incarnations have been and where you've left behind energy, and then retrieving that energy. So if you are interested in that idea and having an experience of it, the past life Akashic Adventure on my website might be a cool place for you to start with that.
Especially if you're feeling like there's something missing in your life and you can't figure it out on the spiritual aspect of your life. You just can't. Intellectually you try to grab it and it just doesn't want to come to you. And it's because we remember our spirit remembers all, and our spirits within us, our spirit remembers all this, but it's just not open to you. And then sometimes you get a little crack and a little taste of it and you're not quite sure. And then, like there's little pieces here and there that are just missing from your life.
Mm. You know,
Faye said, what's the artist's name? The one you're just talking about?
Hilma af Klint, Hilma Afklint. Hilma af Klint. There's another cool example of a Canadian farmer's wife. I think she's dead now too. And her name was Alma Rumbold. And she's this uneducated farmer's wife from somewhere in the prairies. And her paintings are amazing. They have all of this very sophisticated sort of, I don't know, Hindu and Buddhist iconography. And I mean, she was a Christian and had no conscious knowledge or information of any of that stuff and no interest in it either. But it's all come out in these amazing paintings that she did. So that's, what did I say? Alma Rumbold.
You can even see it in photography too. I mean, some like pictures, sometimes pictures, you take pictures or somebody takes a picture and you see this picture and it just blows you away. You know, it's just something simple and just amazing, you know, like, and I think a lot of artists, a lot of photographers get channeled as far as how to take and where to take pictures.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't have a personal experience of being a good
Well,
photographer.
look at our friend Sherry's some of her pictures, her photography. I mean,
She has an eye to frame the image for sure.
oh, not just that. I mean, it's just not just framing an image. It's the image itself has to talk to you, has to come to you, right?
Yeah.
And to stop and take. I mean, even just to stop what you're doing and look at something long enough to see the picture.
Right.
That's what I think. That's my belief, anyway.
Well, very cool. Do we have any other questions yet? Folks, you can
Nope.
write questions about automatic writing, automatic drawing, or anything else that you would like to ask a question about. It's funny because the last episode we did before Christmas, we said that this is what we were going to do as the first one in the new year, and everyone was very excited about it.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
It's just not something a lot of people have had experience with.
So,
Ask this question: why, with automatic writing, why do you feel you would like to be able to do automatic writing?
are you
Why would,
asking
or
us?
art?
Are you
No, I'm
asking?
opening up that question to the people online with us. What do you think would benefit you by being able to do this?
And while we're waiting for them to write, the other thing that's happening is that there's a ton of creative energy being used, flowing down your arms and through your hand chakras. Right? We did an episode on the hand chakras and how they relate to manifestation. Your creative energy flows out into the world through your hand chakras. And so these are all ways of getting that creative energy really flowing. And also, it's a form of manifestation. You're tangibly creating things, bringing them into the physical realm when through those practices. Well, maybe I can find some little stories about examples of automatic writing. So let's see. Let's see if we can, because again, like those famous artists, there's also famous writers. There's a lot of poets, like W.B. Yeats, the English poet, was into automatic writing, and his wife was as well. There's a story where Charles Dickens died, and he left a book half finished, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and the book was finished by a printer called T.P. James, who said he was channeling Charles Dickens to finish the novel. And there was another example I was reading, and I can't remember what it was now, but somebody was proclaiming it to be a fake because the handwriting, oh, I know, somebody was supposed to be channeling Lincoln. Somebody was supposed to be channeling President Lincoln. And then they looked at the handwriting and said, well, that's a fake because the handwriting doesn't match Lincoln. Well, of course it doesn't match Lincoln. You know, I don't know why you would expect that it, excuse me, that it should, you know. It still could be a message from Lincoln. The handwriting doesn't have to be the same as,
Yeah, it's like recording a voice. You record somebody's voice on one recorder or on another recorder with a different quality, and you're going to get different recordings. They're going to
but
sound
it
different.
could be, you know, Lincoln being channeled through someone else. They would be writing it in their own handwriting, you know. It doesn't necessarily mean that information didn't connect with that, the spirit of Abraham Lincoln.
Faye says, "What's a good intention to set before making art?"
Ah, let's think
Whatever
about
you
that.
want. Whatever you want.
You know, if I think about when I do it, I don't know that I set an intention, but I do set a vibration. Like I would feel a vibration of love, delight, excitement, gratitude, enjoyment, just those high vibrations, because it's something that I love to do. So a feeling of joy. So moving into a vibration that supports and gets you closer to that, you know, higher vibration that you're wanting to channel. And also sometimes she asked about drawing, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you know, I might just scribble a few, just to get myself in the mood, just scribble a few pages, you know, and be prepared that there's a few that you know, you're not that you know, until you really get into the swing of it. So it's about getting yourself into the vibration of it, and like I said earlier, getting yourself out of the way. So sometimes if you're thinking, oh, here's my intention is that I will do this, well, it's okay to do that, but then move out of the way, because what you don't want to do is be straining and going into effort in order to meet your intention.
That's difficult though sometimes to getting out of your head is not the easiest thing in the world.
And I think a spirit of exploration and playfulness, you know, that um, not being attached to what happens, it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm just here for the fun of it, just to explore and experiment and allow.
Yeah, that's kids are great at that. I mean, you watch a child draw, they're not trying to be, like Rembrandt or Dali or anybody like that. They're just letting their emotions flow out on paper.
Exactly. Well, and you know, you keep talking about emotions, and I suppose art can be a way of channeling emotions. You know, if you're angry, you could get your anger out on the page. Even journaling can be, right? So one might say that they are forms of channeled. You asked about that before, and I said, oh, I don't know the answer to that, but I think that you can channel your emotions on the page. You can channel your emotions in writing. You can channel your emotions in art. It can be really cathartic and a way of getting stuff out of your system. You know, if you don't want to shout and scream, you can scribble.
What made you go the route of that? What really started you off on that?
So I I think for me it was a kind of a cathartic thing. It because I started doing my automatic drawings when I was in my spiritual training, which was 20 years ago. So the first one I did was probably around 2000, maybe even 1998. And I spent 6 years actually in very intense spiritual training. And, and so I was transforming very rapidly myself. I was learning a lot about myself. I was clearing a lot of karma. And so the drawings just started happening, and after I'd created up quite a library of them, I realized that what I was expressing was my personal spiritual journey. But my personal spiritual journey is reflective of the personal spiritual journey of anyone, you know. And so that there were some common themes and ideas and information being expressed through the drawings that were relevant to others, not just to me.
Okay, great. We have our last question for you, Dr. Leslie, from Shannon. And she says, my hands are always flowing with energy. I also have a heartbeat and a pulse that are talking constantly. I'm interested in developing it further to help my clients and possibly produce books or poetry. Can you get out of the way by just writing, I release my attachments?
Well, you could try that and you would find out, I guess.
Sometimes you're just so helpful, Dr. Leslie.
Let me look at that. Give me a second. Let me look at that for her. When I look at that and doing that, I guess it depends, because it's sort of like if I see somebody writing over and over again, I release my attachments, I release my attachments, I release my attachments. In some senses, there's a focus on the attachments, you know, focusing on having attachments that you're releasing. And so I just wonder whether, rather than that, move yourself into a space where you are above the attachments, apart from the attachments, so that they don't even come into the picture. You know, before we were talking about bypassing the intellect. So I'm seeing you can get yourself into a meditative state where you are centered and where you are open to channel, and the space of just doing what you're wanting is opened up, and the attachments don't even become an issue. But if you're going to be a conscious channel, you do have to work on, you know, watching that your intellects not keep coming in.
Very good. That was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Leslie.
You're very
By
welcome.
the way, Shannon says, LOL, thank you.
Yeah.
Faye wants to talk more about it, but another day. Can you talk more about your training today or another day? We shall do that another day.
Yes.
Because we're saying good night to everybody. Thanks for showing up in 2021.
We're back in the groove. We're going to be back every Tuesday night now, 7 o'clock Pacific time. So don't forget to tune in.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.